I bet I know what you're thinking. Peeta? Why Peeta? That actually sounds like what Katniss was thinking when Peeta was picked for the Hunger Games. Why this weak guy who can't hide his emotions? I guess my thinking was, what's Peeta's purpose in this story? I guess we should talk about his backstory, which we don't really know much about except for through Katniss's flashbacks. We know he's a baker's son, and we know he's strong because he can carry and toss these heavy bags of flour. His family is part of the merchant class. They aren't rich, but they aren't poor like Katniss and many of the others in the seam. In fact, Katniss is actually surprised when she finds out that Peeta and his family have actually eaten the squirrels that she's traded or sold to them. She thought that because of his family, they had access to better meat and wouldn't eat the squirrels. Peeta's dad seems friendly, but his mom seems a bit abusive. Katniss tells us that when she wanted to trade for bread, she would wait for Peeta's mom to go away. And she actually called his mom a witch. Well, who is Peeta? Well, he's kind and caring, physically strong and mentally strong. But he believes he's going to die in the games. And he loves Katniss and would sacrifice for her. How do we know he loves her? Well, you might have suspected it beforehand, but at the end of chapter 9, he tells us this. At the tribute interviews before the games begin, there, on the stage, in front of all of Panem, but most importantly, in front of Katniss, he tells them that he loves her and he's been in love with her for a very long time. Up to this point, all we really know about Peeta is intertwined with Katniss' story. We first meet Peeta when his name is drawn in the lottery. He is terrified that he got picked. He almost stumbles going up the stairs to the stage. His face shows the shock of the moment. Katniss even thinks that he has the same look that she's seen on her prey. On stage, Effie asks for volunteers. Volunteering is unusual, but since Katniss volunteered for Prim, she thought, I don't know, maybe somebody would volunteer for Peeta. He has 2 older brothers. One is too old for the games, and the other one isn't going to volunteer. This is no surprise, because when it comes to the games, family and loyalty really don't mean much. During the 3 days of training before the games begin, Peeta is trying really hard to learn how to survive as much as he can, but he still believes he's not going home after the games. One morning before training, Peeta, Katniss, and Haymitch are eating breakfast and discussing the training. The conversation goes something like this. Peeta says he can't do anything but bake bread. Katniss says she's okay with a bow. Nuh-uh, she's great with a bow. Oh yeah? Well, he can throw a 100-pound bag of flour. Yeah, like there's so many chances of giant bags of flour in the arena. Well, you can wrestle. When was the last time you saw a wrestle to the death match? Hand-to-hand combat is always part of the games. All you need is a knife. If I get jumped, I'm a goner. Well, that's not going to happen because you'll be sitting up in a tree somewhere, eating squirrels and picking off people with your bow. Okay, this is the strangest one-upsmanship I've ever seen. During this conversation, Peeta announces that his mom said that District 12 might actually get a winner this year. But she wasn't talking about Peeta, she was talking about Katniss. Well, geez, no wonder he's certain he's going to die. I mean, with mothers like this, am I right? Peeta might be thinking that since he's sure he's not going to survive the games, why not try to help Katniss as much as he can? Okay, so our setup for Peeta is that he's kind of weak and that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He will most certainly die in the games, and at least from Katniss's point of view, he's messing with her mind because he's kind, and she knows they might have to fight each other in the arena, and a kind Peeta will be much harder to deal with than an unkind Peeta. Some of the themes in the Hunger Game are love, sacrifice, and loyalty, and Peeta plays a big role in these 3 themes. I already mentioned that Peeta loves Katniss. He's been in love with her from afar for many, many years, and many of the actions he takes with respect to Katniss is as a result of his love for her. In fact, his love for her is also tied to the theme of sacrifice. The first time Peeta sacrifices for Katniss is a story told through a flashback from Katniss when Peeta is picked. Weeks before her 12th birthday, she appears at a trash can at the back of the bakery. She is drenched and starving. Peeta probably could see she was looking for food, and since she was looking in the trash cans, she must be desperate. Peeta's mom ran her off, but Katniss didn't get very far. She sat by an apple tree in the rain, just sitting there. The book doesn't come out and say so, but we can tell that Peeta purposefully burned 2 loaves of bread to give to Katniss. His mom, assuming that was an accident, called him a stupid creature and hit him across the face. She then ordered him to feed the bread to the pigs. Peeta, on the other hand, pretended to feed the pigs, waiting for his mom to disappear, and then he tossed the bread to Katniss. He was willing to get into trouble with his mom to give food to Katniss. The next time we see him sacrifice for her is in the arena when Katniss is stung by trackerjackers. She is very vulnerable at this point. She's hallucinating from the effects of the stings and is just sitting there, not really able to defend herself. Peeta runs to her and yells at her until she can start thinking again. He then fights Cato to give Katniss a chance to get away. He was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for Katniss. The final sacrifice comes at the end when he is willing to eat the berries with Katniss. They were promised a chance to both go home from the games. They both go home, or no one will. The final sacrifice is a good segue to the final theme I think Peeta is involved in, and that's loyalty. At the breakfast, where Peeta and Katniss try to prove the other is a worthy opponent in the arena, Peeta tells Haymitch that Katniss doesn't know how she affects people. Now, Katniss is thrown by this statement. She takes this as an insult that he was saying that people took pity on her. She thought he was saying that she hadn't actually figured out how to survive and how to take care of her family. But instead, people pitied her and just helped her for that reason. But what Peeta meant was that she, in spite of being hard and untrusting, draws people in and makes them want to help her. In the beginning of the book, we see that Katniss loves Prim and has great loyalty to her and sacrifices for her. She has a complicated relationship with her mom, but she still has some loyalty to her. The only other person she seems to have any feelings of loyalty to is Gale. At one point, Haymitch tells her that she has about as much charm as a dead slug. If what Haymitch says is true, why does Haymitch, Effie, Cinna, and all the sponsors want to help her? A lot of this is because of Katniss's own actions, but Peeta does have a part in this. Katniss starts out wanting to keep her distance from Peeta. It'll be harder to do what she has to do in the arena if they're friends. Unfortunately for Katniss, she already has some feelings of loyalty to Peeta because of the burnt bread and his connection to the day she realized how she could take care of her family. She spent most of the training days reminding herself that, at best, only one of them can come home. From the time the two were on the stage in District 12 on the day of the reaping to the arena, Katniss couldn't tell if Peeta was playing a game to give himself an advantage in the arena or if he was just being kind. But in the arena, when he fought Cato to help her escape, she started seeing him differently. So when the announcement came that the rules had been changed and if the tributes from the same district are the last 2 left, they can both become victors, Katniss yelled Peeta's name instinctively. She was finally able to stop going against her heart and help them both survive. The protector of the family is now the protector of the fellow District 12er. When Katniss found a nearly unalived Peeta, he was in really bad shape. She had no idea if she could even help him, considering his wounds. She wasn't her mother. Hunting was her thing, not nursing. But she took care of him and stayed with him. They were extremely vulnerable at this time. If Cato or any of the other tributes had found them, that was probably the end of them. Peeta was in bad shape when Claudius announced that there would be a feast at the cornucopia and that there would be bags there that each tribute needed. Katniss was determined to go. She was certain that there would be medicine for Peeta. Peeta insisted she not go. He believed that this was just a trap. But she was going to go no matter what. She believed Peeta would do the same for her, and we know from the history that he would. By this point, her loyalty to him was probably as strong as her loyalty to her family and Gale. The final show of loyalty comes at the end of the games when the rule changed back and there could only be one winner. As if no one could see that coming. Well, actually, it looks like Katniss and Peeta didn't see it coming. By this point, they both had sacrificed so much for each other that their loyalty could not be broken. It was all or nothing at this point. And their loyalty actually broke the game that day, and they were both victors. But at what cost? That's a question for another day.